you for spending your Thursday morning with us. Eventually, soon, hopefully, we will be in person together. But here we are today on Zoom. We had a little bit of a change of plans. Fred was unable to join us at the last minute. Something came up, but our own Diane Campanile, the wonderful and amazing and just coming in clutch, Diane Campanile has decided to present on performance management on the same, subject line for us today, and you will still get SHRM and HRCI credits. So thank you so much, Diane, for filling in. So we're going to call this series For HR by HR. And honestly, I think it's a good kickoff to really the rest of the webinars we're bringing you throughout the end of the year through 2021. So I'll give you a little preview of what's to come in, let me look at my notes. In August, again, for HR by HR, the wonderful Kim McClugan will be sharing on building diversity. So that will be a great webinar in August. And Catherine Witherspoon Fry will be joining her on that subject matter. We all remember Catherine. She presented a couple months ago for us. And then Kim Hamill of Apex, if you remember Kim, she was one of our HR award nominees along with Kim McClugan. But Kim Hamill will be speaking on reinventing your culture. Again, another very important topic for HR. And then we have the compliance director of Sally Mae, Moni Presley. She will be doing compliance review, a whole presentation on that for us. And as you know, our webinars, you will always get SHRM credits, SHRM and HRCI credits, a minimum of one, but typically we do 2 credits. So you can always come here to get your continuing education credits. We love to have you. And of course, these webinars are free for members and $10 for future members. So we are so thankful. We love spending time with you all, even if it is on Zoom. So Diane, go ahead, kick it away. Well, one last thing, don't forget, of course, you all know how to use Zoom by now. We stay on mute unless, if you'd like to interject, you're welcome to type it in the chat. Or if Diane or Corey, asks a specific question, feel free to come off mute and participate. But of course, just jump back on mute afterwards so we don't have any interruptions. And I'm logged in as Delaware SHRM, but I'll change my name to Emma at Delaware SHRM. If you have any questions, feel free to private message me in the chat or just, send me a chat message. So Diane, take it away.
Good morning, everybody. I'm so happy to have my HR friends. I talk to my coworkers at work on a regular basis, and I'm like, you don't understand us. We're HR folks. We understand each other. So let's just make sure of one thing. HR folks, we're pretty, let's say, pretty forgiving of each other. So as I go through the presentation today, please feel free to jump in at any time. Frank, I think the world of you and of your opinion. So jump in at any time. Jackie, I don't know if you're with us today, but of course, value your opinion. But I thought the series would be a good idea. Hi, Jack.
Hi, how you doing, Diane?
I'm good. How are you today?
Good. I'm looking at your background. Is that real or is it a screen?
It's a screen. It's so funny. I can't help to tell myself again, an HR person, right? Home goods.
Right. It looks great.
Thank you. It works, right? So anytime, I really said with the Delaware SHRM series for HR by HR, we love having our specialty speakers for sure. We love having our vendors show us things that we haven't thought of, things that we could use in our day-to-day lives. But we have so many talented HR people in Delaware. As you know, I'm from Pennsylvania, but I've really been so impressed with working in Delaware for the past 15 years that I thought, why not go ahead and have some of our folks do these presentations to be able to share with those people who don't maybe have as much experience, or for those people who have a lot of experience who are like, that's a great idea, Diane, but what about this? So I'm going to start today because this is a presentation similar to one I did for a client not too long ago. Performance management, developing and managing your talent. So you'll love to hear that I always say this in any presentation that I do on performance. You'd agree. We coach performance, but we discipline behavior. In human resources, we provide you with every opportunity to be successful. Our job as an employer is to provide employees with every tool to be successful, but also to hold you accountable if in fact you're not. I once heard a New York, and if you want the link, I'll send it to you, Disrupt New York presentation, and the gentleman was fantastic. And one of the things he said was, you want us on that wall, you need us on that wall. That's exactly who I think HR is. We sit on that wall because we have to make sure that the employee is being treated fairly, but the employer's interests are also being watched as well. You can motivate by fear and you can motivate by reward. Both those methods are only temporary. Would you agree? The only lasting thing is to allow employees to be self-motivated. And we do that by showing them we believe in them. But again, we show that by also saying, stop, you've made a mistake. Let's go ahead and talk about what's going on so that we can be sure you'll be successful going forward. Building trust. You can read the screen. Building trust is everything with your employees when you sit in human resources or you sit in management. Employees know whether or not you're a gossip. Employees know whether or not you actually have their back. Would you agree that human resources is kind of the hub for all companies, all organizations? We are the hub that bridge employees together with management, employees together with senior management. So if you take a look at my statements or the statements of others that I have on my screen here, if you are building a culture where honest expectations are communicated and peer accountability is the norm, then the group will address poor performance and attitudes. We call it self-policing. Would you agree? In HR, the best thing we can do is to go ahead and motivate employees to expect the best of their coworkers, because that increases the performance of our organization and, quite frankly, makes us have to deal with issues a lot less. Now, when I say encourage, I don't mean empower, because we also have to be careful about somebody on the floor thinking that they are a supervisor if in fact they don't have those responsibilities, because we're setting them up to fail. Day one. So performance management, when does it begin? It absolutely begins on day one. Do you know who you're looking for? Did you hire who you're looking for? Did we recruit based on the job description criteria? So often I have employers or clients who will say to me, Diane, this person's just not working out. Well, where's their job description? Oh, well, we actually didn't create one. Well, how did you hire them? How did you know who you were looking for? You need a job description to compare it to the resume in order to decide that a resume submitter eventually becomes an applicant. Because if you live, or if you believe what I believe, submitting a resume is not an application. I don't consider you to be an applicant until I've invited you to complete an employment application. After you've completed that employment application, you now became a candidate, and I'm deciding on whether or not to bring you into my organization. So again, employee selection. Did you use proven interview techniques? Or you'll smile when I say this because all of you know it's true. Did you have, well, this manager got this person and this person and this person to go ahead and interview, and oh, they weren't the same people who interviewed before. Well, I'm confused. If you don't have the same people interviewing, how do you know you've got the same results? How do you know there's not a subjective view of what's going on? And then were your interviewers trained? We have to train them? Well, yeah, you have to train your interviewers. And I use candidate evaluation forms for all of my interviewers to go ahead and complete because I want to be able to debrief with a form that they have filled out where they've made decisions on whether or not that person was a good fit for the organization or not such a good fit for the organization. I do that for a number of reasons. One, I do it because a year from now, when they tell me that person's terrible, I want to go back to my form and say, "Well, you said they were the number one hire. I'm confused. Do you need more training, or perhaps are you not the right person to be a part of the interview process?" Many people go through the interview process on a regular basis without training and without actually good results. So think about whether or not they're great to have on your interview team. New hire orientation. Did you invest in that new hire from day one? Remember, we're talking about performance management. If you didn't set them up for success, that's not on them. That's on us in HR. New hire training. Are we sure that the managers are training these employees when they go into the departments that they've been released to? Please make sure that they are, because it's going to allow that person a lot better of an opportunity to be successful than to not. Performance planning. It's a collaborative process, as you know, between a supervisor and an employee in order to establish the performance standards and the expected results. So a job description is great, but I think you would agree, up until recently, people weren't putting on the job description, "Oh, we expect you to show up every day." Well, that's kind of a given, but don't assume it's a given. So make sure that your managers are talking to the employees about what will work in that department. I think I told you before, when I worked for AstraZeneca, I was having a difficult time bringing in new graduates into a lab that was already set up with some senior scientists. They were very confused by the manner with which these new employees were behaving. So what we did was, they had so much time spending texting, so much time where they were just on phone calls. They didn't have that face-to-face recognition of, "You're making me angry. I don't understand." So we put mirrors up at their tables after they were, of course, sanitized. We put mirrors up at their tables, and I said, "Now, when you're talking to your coworkers, make sure you take a look at that mirror. Everything you want to say, everything you are intending is right there on your face." We talk to people all day long without saying a word. It's just right in our face. So make sure those little things your manager is sharing, because we want that manager, they want this employee to, in fact, be successful. We also want to set up whether or not there's going to be opportunities in the future, what that looks like, and how they're going to get there. What's the performance plan? Educational requirements to go next, training needs, development strategies, timeline and end goals. Don't just have performance plans that are, well, they're not quite there yet. They haven't decided to sign into a new training or an education at University of Delaware, Wilmington U, those kinds of things. You want to make sure that they're following up with their employee every 3 months to see, what's your next plan? What's your next plan? That shows they care. Don't forget, you have your rock stars and your superstars. So don't just assume that everybody wants to be the next, supervisor level, get to the next lead position, get to the next manager positions. I think my more seasoned HR people on the line would agree. It's amazing how clients or employers just say, "Oh, that person's been with the organization for 20 years. They're going to be our new manager," when they have no management skills. They have no desire to be a manager. So remember, at work, you have your rock stars who are going to be dependable. They're consistent. They come in every day. You can count on them every day. They're steady. They are your trainers. Typically, when a person joins that organization or joins that department, your rock stars are typically the people who are doing your training, because they've been around. They can be counted on to be correct when they share information. And you have your superstars, who are just as much the same, except these superstars are really focused and driven. They're type A personalities. They're competitive. They're always driving. You can usually tell who they are. This past year, I got my Title IX certification. I'm Title IX certification for investigation. I am now getting my K through 12 administrator. I'm a mother with 2 kids who are well into their own jobs themselves, with a daughter who's a nurse and a son who's a CPA. So I just keep going back to school to do something else. Thanks, Frank. And so I would consider myself to be someone who's just never stagnant. I always want to see what's next. I always want to do the next thing. And that's not for every employee. Would you agree? We need our rock stars, the people we can count on to be there on a regular basis. I'm probably not that person. Performance feedback. So it's great that your manager went ahead and set up what it looks like at your organization. We know we made the right hire based off of a job description and a standard, steady recruitment process. We hired the right person. The manager had an initial discussion with the person, set up a 3-month time frame where they're going to go ahead and check in with that person on have they advanced in their goals. They're going to go ahead and do this on a regular basis, periodic or scheduled. I always recommend scheduled coachings at least once a month, if not perhaps more. It depends on the organization, and it certainly depends on the culture. But if you're not having a discussion with your employees, or your managers aren't having a discussion with your employees, at least on a quarterly basis, they're not empowering these people to be the best that they can be. So performance resets. Every now and then, employees who are unable to meet the performance standards, even after training, coaching, you want to go ahead and set them up on, people will call it a performance improvement plan. I don't call it that. It sounds so negative. I call it an achievement strategy plan. And I'll go into it at the very end. I know I have a final slide on an achievement strategy plan. You would be surprised what words and how you use those words change how somebody receives that information. When they go home, and you know they do, they say to their significant other, oh, I got a performance improvement plan today. It sounds so, negative to me. It sounds so, oh, that's sad. I got a performance improvement plan because I'm not doing well, versus I got an achievement strategy plan. Now, I may just be an HRE type of person who's always happy, and that's why I see it that way, but consider how you use terminology, what you call things. Performance appraisals. I think performance appraisals need to be done on a regular basis in order for employees to decide that they are doing a good job, they're not doing a good job, and certainly to set them up in the next set of what their performance should be with the organization to set them up for success. Make sure your performance improvement, make sure your performance evaluation or your performance appraisal is directly connected to your job description. Your job ad should reflect your job description. Then your job description should be those standards by which you're holding your employees accountable. Your performance appraisal, your annual performance appraisal, if that's not a direct reflection, even I'm confused. Make sure you try and do that. So your tool, we talked about it a little bit ago, it is just that. And we want to make sure that, hey, for my SHRM people out there, you know these words. Is it reliable? Does it measure correctly? And is it valid? Does it measure what it was intended to measure? So I know anybody with their SHRM certification remembers that ad nauseum. How many times did we study for that when we went into our certification? Is it reliable? And is it valid? There's two different things. It either hits the mark or it doesn't. Please, at any time, feel free to talk to me. Feel free to go ahead and raise any questions, or give me some feedback, or give our those people who are paying attention to us today some feedback too. We're HR people, we like to talk. So testing, make sure that when you are doing testing for your employees, and I put this towards the middle of our thing today because I know a lot of times employers will say that now we're going to go ahead and do some testing for that employee to get into the next role that they could have. Don't forget, again, another SHRM thing that we all learned about disparate treatment as well as disparate impact. Make sure that when you are in fact doing any testing with your employees, training with your employees, that you're not setting them up for indirect discrimination, unequal consequences or results, usually unintentional disparate impact, but what is going to be the impact of the testing that you have decided to now put into place? Also think about it at the time when employees or candidates are being hired. If you're going to go ahead and do any testing of these employees, make sure it is job related, related to their skills that they are going to need to have in order to do their job. Just be very conscientious of when that testing will go ahead and provide an unequal result for people for whatever reason. Make sure. Somebody who has to lift, 100 pounds. Here's part of our test. You have to lift this 100-pound barbell. Well, why? I'm answering the phone. You'd be surprised. I have testing that goes on, and I'm like, no, that has nothing to do with the job. So we set people up for success, not failure. Guidelines for an effective performance review. Sorry, I'm moving my screen around so that I can see what my screen says. Appraisals, be accurate. So writing the evaluation, make sure that the information is first accurate. Provide information that is true and is used in the proper context. Things that have been personally observed or confirmed and documented by the manager. Oftentimes I see something that will be included in it. It's an opinion. It's not actually an objective thing that a manager can point to during the performance appraisal discussion. Don't do it. Be accurate, be specific. State as to each duty and responsibility, whether it is above standards, meets standards, or it's below standards. Now, for those of you setting up a performance appraisal form, if you haven't already learned this, always use odds, 3s, 5s. I don't think 7 is a good number, but 3s and 5s, mostly because when you use 4, nobody wants to be 2 and 3. That's how I look at my performance appraisal plan, remembering that nobody wants to be in the middle. They always want to be, nobody wants to be on the lower end. They certainly want to be in the middle, if at the very least. So I use odds all the time, 3 and 5. Be thorough when you're writing your evaluation. This is not a time frame for people to use the checkoff marks. We just want to do this really fast. Well, that's not fair to your employee. It's not fair to your manager. How could I possibly say that this person wasn't successful because they didn't invest in the job itself if I haven't shown them what they need to do to invest in the job itself? Be thorough. Be consistent. So I should be able to, and in my organization, Lions Companies, I actually review everybody's performance review before it's actually given, because different managers, every HR person knows, different managers will go ahead and scale things differently. I think it's our job to be that consistent person within an organization that says, wait, this manager calls this employee's performance a 3, and yet I'm looking at all of the words that they are using, the descriptions that they are giving for these scenarios and situations, and this manager called it a 5. We can't have that at our organization. I need to know that a 3 with this manager is a 3 with this manager, or a 5 is a 5. So be consistent. When you get to a performance review, I'm sure that you know an employee shouldn't be shocked. If you have an employee who is shocked when they go into a performance review meeting, your manager's not doing their job. The manager's not doing their job and making sure that this employee is very well aware of what their standard is or what their performance appraisal is going to say. So no one should be surprised. We should set up time for that person to be prepared to hear that performance review too. So I have some managers who will go and say, well, I finished all the reviews, you reviewed them, and everything looks good. So I'm just pulling people off the floor. No, we want to set aside time for that person, make sure that they have our attention and the attention that's deserved. Before we got on the call this morning, when I was talking with Corey and with Emma, it was funny. I said, one of the things we know in HR is to make sure that a person is prepared to share the information they're just about to share. So when a person comes to my door and they're upset and they're knocking and I can see they're red, I wait and say, hey, you want to go ahead and schedule time later on? Because I can't forget what you tell me. Same idea with performance appraisals. Make sure that that person is prepared for feedback. Sometimes you're like, I've had 7 coffees today. I'm not in a good place to hear feedback. Guidelines for Effective performance appraisals, again, describe and rate the employee's overall performance, but give them specifics about their strengths and weaknesses or areas of challenge. And remember, you're only evaluating the employee's performance, not their personality, not personal attitudes about them. Performance pitfalls, making sure we manage them. Assuming that performance will change if there's no intervention. So remember, managers who knock on your door and say, hey, this employee is not doing the job that they should be doing. Well, how long has that been the case? Oh, 10 years. Sorry, what? They've not been doing the job for the past 10 years. What were you hoping we could accomplish today? So make sure your managers know that performance isn't going to change unless they provide the employee with the opportunity to change their performance. And that means giving them the guidelines, providing them with the tools. Failing to provide details of the change required, right? In our achievement strategy plans, aren't we very specific? Here's what's wrong, here's how you fix it, and here's when it needs to be fixed by. Using inappropriate tactics to influence change. You're not allowed to take another day off until you improve your performance. I really had that happen. I was like, yeah, no, that's not okay. That's not going to work. If anything, you've just made that employee angry and now they're going to dig their heels in. We don't do that. Putting process over performance. Wait, I have a comment. Yay. Frank, can we unmute Frank so he can talk?
Yep.
Great.
So my question was, is it commonplace for employees to write their own performance appraisal and then hosting a manager meeting to receive their input and evaluation? I mean, it's been my experience that there are pros and cons to that approach. I was just wondering how prevalent that approach is with the folks that are on the call.
I can tell you for my organization, Lions Companies, our employees do in fact get that opportunity to first evaluate their own performance and then be able to have the manager take a look at that performance review. And then I take a look at them afterwards. But for the clients that I've worked with, not many have done that. Anybody on the call?
Hello.
Don't be shy, share. Go ahead.
Raheem. My experience is based on the military. At no time did we ever self-evaluate ourselves. We were always given a performance evaluation every 6 months, and it was based on a 1.0 to 4.0 scale. I know you said 3 to 5, but you know, as a supervisor, I used to evaluate my subordinates, and no one ever got a 4.0 with me. And there's no perfect sailor. I was in the Navy, but I thought I was fair, and that's my little spill on it.
That's funny, the 4. Frank, have you found that to be the case when you set up performance appraisal tools? Just the odds rating always worked better anytime I saw it.
Yeah, same here, 1 to 5. And, it's always, 1, 3, or 5 is what's encouraged just to show, some improvement or some, I have seen where folks have received the 5 in some areas. It's okay to say, hey, you're really good at this, keep it up, and show others how to be good,
Mm-hmm. And then it's also, how many lines are you going to have? How many ratings are you going to have? Again, I also, right, Frank? I also go with the odd because every employee counts it and says, well, if I've gotten, this score and I divide it by the number of lines I have, here should be my rating. And then we get into the 4.1, 4.125, 4. And I'm like, I do solids. We either have a 3, 1, 2, or 3. A 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. I don't do the points. Does anybody do points?
I didn't do points in the military, but my philosophy with the top echelon, 4.0, was I didn't want to, if I give a sailor a 4.0, that's the top. I don't want to set them up for failure. I mean, now you're a perfect guy. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So is is you reach the ceiling. So I expect that performance all the time. So I didn't really give them the top echelon all the time. I mean, I want to give some room for improvement. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm. So we see, I'm hearing from Bancroft and Harvey Hanna here. Bancroft's employee initiates the meetings with the manager, and our process is more of a coaching session rather than ratings. These meetings are held 3 times a year. Very nice. And that is certainly something that I am seeing on a regular basis. Is it's happening more often than just that once a year. And Lisa Schneider says, thank you, Addie. Lisa Schneider says, we started employee input on reviews last year. So it looks like it's going in that direction, Frank. And it's a good thing, right?
Diane, at my job where I worked before, we had the employees do their input, and it really was successful because a lot of persons, they know exactly where, an honest person know exactly where they are. And they will tell you, they'll say, well, I was good at this, based off of the, thing. And then you say, all right, okay. So when you come back with what your evaluation, there's not usually there are no surprises for an honest employee. I
That's
like it.
fair. That's a fair statement. That's good because I think we've all been there where an employee is surprised if we've been invited as the HR person. We're like, wait, why are they surprised? And then horn and halo effect. Of course, again, another SHRM term. If in fact, the last thing the employee did, they're the greatest ever, or the worst thing the employee did was just happened, and all of a sudden, everything they did the past year is to put, no, that doesn't work. So the horn and halo effect is just that. The last thing they did makes them wonderful, or the last thing they did makes them terrible, as opposed to there was 11 other months in this year.
I recently went to Macy's and I bought some furniture, and this guy was just starting out in his job, and he did a really fabulous job for myself and another customer. I said to him, "Why don't you put that in your phone?" And exactly what happened, what we said, our receipt number, etc. He said, I never thought of doing something like that. I said, yes, what you're doing is setting yourself up for success so that when they come back with your evaluation, you can be like, you remember on this day, this happened, this customer. I said, you're helping yourself be proactive. He said, thank you so much. This is my first job, and that really helped. So, sometimes a lot of employees might not know something, and companies might not be doing it that way. But if they have somebody, if each of us helps somebody, it will help them in the future.
There you go. You're absolutely right. I imagine that most of us in human resources do look for opportunities to do that for people we interact with on a regular basis. Somebody who's a good, at a restaurant, somebody who helped you, like you said, you look for opportunities to be able to say, hey, I'm going to call. I'm not going to be the person who calls with complaints all the time. I'm the person who calls to say, you can't believe this person was terrific. That's what makes us happy people. Avoid general labels. You know this. Too emotional, disrespectful. Goodness, we don't allow these kinds of comments on reviews. They're inappropriate and unprofessional. So this person can be subject to be problematic. I have another chat thing. I love this. I wish everybody could just talk. And Lisa, of course you do. Lisa Schneider says, she does that when she goes to a store. Absolutely. So you also want to be careful about subject criteria as well, because it sets you up as an employer for discrimination, for liability, certainly. Provide sound feedback. Immediate developmental, schedule formal sessions like we talked about, ask the employee's view of how their performance was, like we've talked about a couple of times. We're looking at beforehand. Offer help in addressing any development needs and providing resources. So when we provide employees with feedback about why their performance isn't where it needs to be or how it could improve, though it is good now, make sure you actually provide them with the tools to get there. It's not just an idea. Don't delay implementation. So don't you like employers or managers who will say, you know, this employee's been bad for the past 10 years. I'm sorry. Haven't you given them any warnings? No. So why is it a surprise to you they continue to be a bad employee? Oh, so when we know that we have an opportunity to provide an employee with some feedback that allows them to be a better employee, warnings, make sure we give them warnings given, but failure to improve performance is a delay in implementation, in my opinion. Time for performance improvement plan, but we delay that because after all, it's Christmas, it's the holidays, their daughter just got married, their son just got married. Yeah, that doesn't come into play. That's not fair to the employee. Actually, as an external consultant to organizations, the fact that I don't know those things is kind of helpful sometimes. Things that have delayed implementation. Sometimes it's too late for an improvement plan, and we're looking at termination for an employee instead. And I largely credit myself as a manager or an HR person if I haven't given that person what they needed to do to be successful. The fact that a company is now talking about, my company is now talking about getting rid of that person, terminating that person, I take that as a personal performance of mine. Timing, timing, timing. It's kind of like when you buy a house, it's location, location, location. Making sure that we offer employees opportunities to improve their performance is all about timing. Inconsistency, we talked about not being inconsistent with our employees, giving them mixed messages. So certainly when an employee is doing a good job, we want to go ahead and provide them with that information. The next day, if they're not doing a good job in this area, we want to go ahead and provide them that same information. However, make sure that when you do that, you're looking at it from the playing field of, if they did this yesterday and it was good, and they did this today and somebody's calling that bad, figure out what's happening first, because the person providing you that information is being inconsistent. Don't pass that along. It's not helping your employee. Unfair favoritism can lead, oh, I just had this, can lead to a claim of unlawful discrimination. Favoritism with employees, it sets them up for failure, as well as the coworkers, you as a manager, or us as a manager, and the employer. I actually have a client right now that is going through a lawsuit because of showing favoritism to one employee versus their other employees. It happens to be that this is a female employee. And so she has now claimed that she has been harassed. And as a result of the harassment, she did get preferred treatment, but it has also made her at odds with her coworkers. So it was interesting. Frank, you shook your head. Have you seen that before?
Yes, I have. And even to the point where the manager, when pressed, admitted favoring one employee over the other. And that's headed in a bad direction.
Right? It puts them at odds with their coworkers. And,
Yes,
and now
does.
their coworkers, right. So,
yeah.
Try to be consistent, but recognize exceptions. Otherwise, supervisors may ignore or fail inappropriate. Sorry, I can't see the rest of that screen. I'm glad you're giving me leeway since I wasn't ready. Mitigating factors. Oh, length of employment. I know what I'm going for here, or what I was going for here. So when we talk about an employee's performance, if I've got an employee who's been with me for a year and they've not performed well for, let's say, 3 months out of that year, that's not great odds. That's not great odds. I'm going to certainly hold them accountable. But I've got an employee who's been with me for 10 years, and the past 3 months, they've not performed well. I'm going to guess something is going on. So I may be slightly inconsistent because I'm rationalizing that this employee has had the past 9 years and 9 months without issue. So I owe it to them. I owe it to our organization to find out why their performance is starting to fail. The quality of that performance. I always want to make sure that what do their performance reviews look like in the past 9 years in order to decide that something's going on with that employee. And I need to make sure that as an HR person, I am available for them and talk to their manager to find out maybe their manager knows something else that's going on. Their manager should be having this conversation instead of me initially. Avoiding litigation. Don't make snap judgments. Make sure you know all the facts before you make a decision. Literally, not kidding you. Literally, the first day of one of my jobs, and not at Lions, just so you know, the first day of one of my jobs, I got a knock on the door and they said, we need you to terminate this employee today. And I'm like, what? No, 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 no. I need to know what's going on first. So I have had coworkers of mine, though, who have moved forward, not today, but other HR people who are coworkers. Well, the manager said that they had to be terminated, so we went ahead and terminated them. No, our job is to make sure that that person has had every opportunity to be successful, all the tools necessary to be successful. And if we have to move towards a termination, we need to find out what happened. What did their last reviews look like? You know, really get the information that was required before we jump into a termination. So don't make snap judgments. Also, never discharge or discipline an employee when you're angry or upset. How many times have you seen a manager, that was the manager that day, actually, knock, 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 you need to terminate so-and-so. Oh, so try to talk your managers kind of down. Try to talk your managers down into having a conversation with you, because if the same is true today, it'll be true tomorrow. So let them know that we'll move in a direction that allows for them to either have this employee's performance increase, or if necessary, allow the employee to work elsewhere. But it's not going to happen today. Supervisor's avoidance. Have you ever had a supervisor who gave high ratings to everybody? I have straight 5s down the line. They're avoiding their job. Their job is to provide honest feedback, correct feedback to their employees. So it will always get you in trouble when you've got a manager who is providing everybody with a consistent 1 or a consistent 5. It means, I don't feel like doing my job today. I was just thinking I'll avoid it, and here, you handle it. And then a supervisor will complain about an employee and they forget that we remember. I'm like, do you remember last November when you had a concern about the employee here? Oh, well, yeah, that worked out. It might have worked out, but we want to make sure that if it was significant enough, it shows in their performance appraisals so that we can say to this employee, remember, this happened perhaps in November. We've not seen this continue on, and we've been very happy with you getting improving your performance in that area. And we look forward to this continuing. So we don't avoid putting something on a performance review. We want to make sure that it is there, both the good and the bad. Now, that being said, I've talked about managers keeping their little notes. And we know that managers keep notes on an employee's performance throughout a year. Just make sure they're not setting up another employee file, because sometimes they do. So I say with that manager, take those notes, make sure they're reflected on your performance review, and then destroy those notes, because that is what you should be having. That is the formal response to your notes is and should be reflected there on your performance appraisal. I have a chat. So one manager doesn't want to say anything negative, but does that exact same thing. And I don't know how to get them to tell employee that they are not meeting expectations. Well, sometimes a manager who has a difficult time giving correct feedback to their employees needs a little nudge from us in human resources. And that means, you know, you're having a concern with your employee in this area. You've mentioned this to me before. I note that you're not comfortable saying anything to them. Would it help if I facilitate that conversation? And then I'll go and have a conversation, bring in the employee, bring in the supervisor, and kind of keep them on track of, can you go ahead and share the feedback that you have for this employee? Remember, one of the things you and I talked about, so try to break the ice, get that conversation going, help the manager along, because again, our job is to help that manager as much as it is to help that employee. And if nobody's talking about the issues, nothing's ever changing. Another chat. Then the employee starts crying all the time and it gets escalated. I do not allow for that type of behavior. And here's why. When a person starts getting really emotional, it's not fair for them to continue a conversation. It simply isn't. It is not fair for them either A, because they are so, or too emotionally distraught that it's not fair. They're not listening, they're not hearing. And I don't want to make them too uncomfortable. But the other side of that fence is also that I've seen people use it in a manipulating fashion to say, as long as I'm crying, they're not going to continue down this road. So what I do if somebody starts to cry in a meeting that I'm having, I will do it just for the look of it. I will immediately stand up and say, I'm so sorry. It doesn't look like you are in a good position to continue this conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and schedule us for 3 o'clock today. Does that work with your time frame? It's kind of like being the adult in the room. Sometimes we are the adult in the room. And I am sincere when I tell you that I want employees to be successful. And I believe most of you who I kind of know, most of you are the same. I want people to thrive and do well. They won't do that. They can't do that if I'm not honest with them. So sometimes it's hard, but make sure that you encourage that manager to allow you to facilitate a conversation. And certainly no emotional outbursts. Just a funny story. I actually had, unfortunately, I work with a lot of clients, so you don't know who I'm talking about. And it happened in Pennsylvania, so don't worry about it. But I had a client, I had a CFO who pounded the table with 2 fists during a facilitation conversation. And I said, I'm sorry, pounding the table with your fists is not an acceptable form of communication. These are the things we say in HR. Supervisor avoidance. Oh, I have another chat. Yay. Sorry, my dog's now barking. Thank you. No performance improvement plans. Achievement strategy plan has been initiated. No surprise that some managers or some supervisors avoid it. Remember, people can't give you more than they have. So if they don't have that ability, help them. No warnings or documentation before they look towards termination. Help them start with the documentation process. Tell them what it looks like, what they should document, what they should avoid, and certainly that we should not have any new employee files in their desk drawer. You and I know it happens. Questions. So during a time frame of having a performance review or performance review questions with your employees, it should never be suggested to an employee that, is it because of your epilepsy that you're not able to do this job or this performance well? Oh, goodness, no. It should never be suggested to an employee that perhaps you've got something, that's going on. I noticed you've been missing a number of days in the office. Have you been sick? So anytime you start to talk to an employee about their performance not being acceptable as a result of having some kind of disability or suggesting to them that it's related to a situation in which it could be that they have a disability, you are treading on terrible territory. Avoid it. Absolutely not. Your employees should always feel that they are capable of coming to you if there's any reason that they're not meeting performance standards. And if you're having a performance review appraisal conversation, you can say to the employee, what steps will you be able to do in order to increase your performance? But we don't entertain, did something happen that weekend with your daughter again? I've been in those conversations, just so you know, where I'm like, oh gosh, no. So as you know, we're in a good faith state in Delaware. So is Pennsylvania. Actually, Pennsylvania is not, I'm sorry. Delaware is a good faith state. So if you have in your handbook that you manage performance through a verbal, written, suspension, and dismissal. I don't know why sometimes we have it in dismissal, but it's in there. Make sure that you are following the steps as much as you should be. And remember that your employee handbook should indicate that you have the right to go ahead and jump any of these steps at any time if the situation warrants. You don't want to lock yourself into following these steps all the time if in fact it wouldn't be appropriate. If somebody punches another employee, they're out. There's no question. I need no investigation. You're out. So make sure that what you have written in your employee handbook is reflective of a good faith policy with the ability to jump steps. There's my achievement strategy plan. I smile. Oh, I went back on. Achievement strategy plan. So it looks just like a performance improvement plan, but it is written with a little bit more of a coaching / consulting pull to it. It should be very specific about what needs to happen, when it needs to happen, why it needs to happen, because you want to keep your job, how it needs to happen, and what the next steps are going to be. If you've got somebody on achievement strategy plan, they should be meeting with their supervisor no less than every 30 days, no less. Most achievement strategy plans, just like performance improvement plans, will last 30, 60, 90 days. Make sure when you put those in place that you're not guaranteeing employment for that time frame. Always reserve your ability to have employment at will, since we are an employment at will state. I do watch some employers do a new orientation or an introductory period with their new employees that is locking them in to the 90 days. Be careful you don't do that. Just like with an achievement strategy plan, it doesn't mean you get 90 days to go ahead and improve. If at any time something happens along the way, we can move again further in steps, and we're still in employment at will state. And this is an employment at will job. So I think it's really funny that people avoid having these conversations with their employees because they feel bad, because it's their first job, because they don't know if they'll be able to get another job. I'd like to remind you that Walt Disney was actually fired from his first job for lack of creativity. Isn't that amazing? So somebody had the guts to say to him, this just isn't working out here. We don't think you're a good fit here. Perhaps you should work somewhere else. Look at that. He worked somewhere else, and he was amazingly successful. It just wasn't the right place for him. Don't assume that your employee is not talented just because they're not talented with you or at your organization. Sometimes the right thing is to let somebody go. My name is Diane Campanile, the program chair for Delaware SHRM. I also have a day job as the Director of Human Capital Management for the Lions Companies. I do presentations at the Lions Companies as well, but this is not an advertisement for Lions Companies. We have today with us Corey Nickles, and Corey is from Alumo. I thought it was really interesting. I'm probably not saying it right, Corey. You're going to have to help me out there. But I thought it was really interesting, the presentation that they had, he and his boss shared with me. And I think it's interesting because we're talking about a performance mechanism to judge how we as an employer do our performance, not our employees' performance. I have one more chat I'm going to take. And absolutely, everybody's going to get a copy of my PowerPoint today. It is in a PDF form, so I would ask you to do a couple of things. Actually, SHRM recently put on my job description template to their site. So I will send you a copy of the PDF. I would ask that you reach out to me and talk to me to let me know that you were looking at something on that PDF that was of interest to you, because I'm always looking for ways to improve. I spend at least 2 days a week doing presentations. So any feedback is really welcome. Corey, I'm trying to find you. I am done with my presentation on performance improvement today, or performance management today. Remember, it starts with day one. If you haven't hired the right person, that's our fault. Corey, I'm going to go silent if you're ready to go.
And
Diane, go ahead and stop sharing so Corey
Yeah.
can start sharing his slides. Just click the stop share button. There you go.
Okay. Okay. Can everybody see my screen? Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay. And everybody hear me well?
Okay, great.
Gotcha.
Great. Well, thank you for inviting us today. Lumo, I believe, is a sponsor for this event. And I had the privilege of meeting Diane about a month or so ago and went through the presentation, and she thought it was valuable enough to allow us to talk to you today. And I appreciate that. A little bit about myself. I actually went to school with Amanda Boone, which I believe she is the chair of the HR group. Is that correct? Yeah. So we graduated together, went to school together, both played sports at York College in Pennsylvania, and connected with her recently after becoming part of Lumo. And she said, this is interesting enough to share it with her connection. So I'm very, very thankful for that. A little bit about myself. I had worked at the same sales position for 14 years, selling sports equipment all over the country, all over the world. And then COVID hit and basically destroyed the whole industry. And it basically, I lost a job that I had been in for well over a decade, and I was into my 15th season. And so I was forced to go find another job, which took me quite a long time to do that. I couldn't find anything in sales that I felt like that I could give back to anything. It was all just selling a widget and just moving on. And I really didn't want to do that. I had done that before. So I was looking for something that gave value to my, me personally and to other people, maybe, so I could feel like I was contributing to society basically. And then Illumo came along and opened my eyes to the environment that I was working in when I was with this football company. And I realized how toxic of a culture it was and how much I wish we had a tool like this when, when I was there. So we try to help people understand the human experience at work. It was the employee experience at work, but we feel like there's a new generation of this coming through, calling like the human experience at work. And what we're trying to do is everybody's different. Every company is trying to find something different. Every HR manager is trying to find results. What are you looking for? There's so many vast, diverse things that people are trying to figure out. We're trying to create a tool that helps you do that. So the path is everybody wants business results and they want engagement and productivity from their employees and hopefully a good culture and a good work experience. Well, it all starts from insights and understanding your employees. So to start that, we believe we have created the first real-time employee engagement platform that there is. And how do you create that effectively? We try to help you create a strategic approach to cultivate a great environment. And when you create that, you're starting to create the human experience at work. People feel heard, people feel appreciated, they feel respected, and in turn, their engagement equals higher productivity. And higher productivity shows higher business results. So how do we get the data? Well, we simply just ask questions and listen to answers. But surveys are not always the best way we're finding to do that. They are, frankly, archaic and a single snapshot in time, a single moment of time, and the speed of change in our environment is so fast that surveys tend not to keep up with that. So then they develop pulse surveys, trying to find things to be more nimble, trying to get ahead of the program, trying to get ahead of the curve, and trying to understand things. But the problem is that, again, they are a snippet in time. They're such a small window of what's going on. And by the time you get to it, it's almost rearward thinking. It's like driving a car through the rearview mirror. You're just seeing what's happening behind you. And a lot of times the methods like emails, they're slow. They're hard to get a lot of participation, most likely. We've had people who have 80% effective rate, and we have people who have like 20% effective rate. So it just depends on your organization. But what we've found, and that it's possibly not the most effective way of doing it, is through emails. And a lot of it is one-sided. There is not a conversation that you can understand and go deeper into what is going on. And the CEO of the company has a brother-in-law who is the owner of a company is like, every time I feel like I send out an engagement survey, it turns into a disengagement survey. So we're trying to figure out ways to engage people, to make them feel heard, and to create this human experience. Well, to do that, we need to figure out how to create needles, and you can't move a needle if you don't have a needle. So at Illumo, we've created a process. It's a systematic approach to driving business results through human analytics. And whatever that may be, whatever you're focusing on, is it diversity or inclusion? Is it your COVID response? Is it leadership? Is it DEI? Whatever it is, we have all sorts of ways to help you understand these areas. And this is what we call the Illumo way. So the LEAP process, we start with listening. We ask questions on a frequency of about once a week. So about 20% of your population will be sent out like a question, and we can do that in Slack, wherever your team lives, wherever your people live. If they live in Slack, if they live in Teams, if email is the best approach, then we can do email. But what we have found is that texts are the best way. Over 90% of texts are opened and read, and we found that that was the special sauce. What basically got the highest response rate were on SMS texts. But again, that's not where you live. If there's issues with that, then we do have other ways that you can integrate this into your world here. We did not build an app on purpose, so this is not an app. This is just a regular text message sent right to you, to your employees, and the frequency, the time of day you want to, however you slice your data. We can set up times and schedules for whoever you want to, whenever you want to. If you have first, second, third shifts, all those things can be set up so that you can be part of their, you're not intruding on their life. So it makes it very easy and very customizable to do that. And we have many different, what we call human experience campaigns. So we had an organizational psychologist go through these core campaigns, find out what worked the best across the board for all kinds of different businesses, manufacturing and hospitality and whatever. So these were the main areas that felt that this would provide the most insight to the most people at the easiest way possible. So we have things like huge important things right now, like diversity, equity, and inclusion, risk management. How is the team doing? Mental health with COVID. There's a huge push of people understanding mental health, where there's a big disconnect between the CEO and the employee about how well they mentally feel. The CEOs feel like it's a high amount, and the employees feel like it's 30 or 40% lower of an amount of how they feel mentally. So that's, you can figure these things out by opening up these campaigns or turning off ones you don't really want to see. Like Diane said, she's like, we can't unsee things. So if you don't want to see something and you're not ready to do any work on or act on any of these, they do not have to be turned on. You can turn on 3 of these things or all of them. You choose what you want to understand at that point. And again, you can't move the needle until you have a needle. So.
Can I jump in, of course?
Please, Diane, yes.
You know me.
I know you.
So one of the things that we were talking about before with Robert was oftentimes I find that as long as an employer isn't ready to make any changes, it is very difficult when they want to collect data. So one of the things as an HR professional to pay attention to too is I think this is a really cool opportunity. Illumo is something, I think it's cool. I've gone through it a couple of times with you. But I also think it's important that our HR folks remember that we don't use these kinds of things unless, of course, we're ready to make changes and we know what employees are going to say.
Yes. Yeah. Again, if you don't feel comfortable understanding your COVID response, we won't ask that. This is 100% customizable, whatever you want to. And if there's something on there that we don't have, we can make it for you. It's very, very customizable, and it makes it, and it's all anonymous, which is the next thing we're getting into, but it's the anonymity of this is very important as well. But we have scale-based questions of a 1 through 5, Diane, that's 5. So we have our odd number there. And as you can see, we have, this one is divided out by departments. On the left, that's the number of the department. And then these are the campaigns that they have turned on. As you see right in the middle, the darker the color, the better they're doing. So the new hire and termination in the center, Department 50 is crushing it. They're at 97. So this is not just to be negative. This is to show you where you're doing an excellent job and where to support that person, that manager, that department, that employee, whatever it is. This is to show you, not to highlight the good and the bad. So it's not just a negative thing. This is showing you where you guys are doing great. Like the number 90 department they're doing very, very well. What is that manager doing in that department that the other ones can learn from? Like in Department 50, the new hire, they're at 97. In Department 55, they're doing not so well. They're at like 59. So this can be stacked and ranked so that you can quickly look at the information and see where time needs to be focused. And it shows, one of the things, we were talking to an HR manager the other day, and she was saying how thankful that she was that we came across her desk, and she opened this up to her management team, their C-suite team, and she said it was like taking the blinders off. They kept asking and asking and asking for more and more information, because it's not anecdotal at this point. You can say, we are doing terrible in well-being. We need to focus on well-being. And what do we need to do to understand that? You need to dive into these questions and find out why your employees have a bad well-being state at that point. We do this by engaging. So what we do a little differently is that we do human-to-human interaction. I know that might be a little bit offsetting, but we actually have people inside of Illumo that are going to, they don't have to, but we can engage your employees on their questions. This is anonymous. There is no way to find out who this person is that you're speaking to. And you can go into any of the questions that were asked, any of the areas that your campaigns are, and open up these conversations and see where the problems are. Like if you see it here, like, what is one thing you recommend the most improve your job? And how often do you get a one-word answer or communication? What does that mean? On a standard survey, you can't go any deeper. But with Illumo, we can do this. See Jess at Illumo, she's a current employee. This is a newer slide. So she is going deeper, trying to help understand, what does communication mean? And you can jump into this. Jess does not have to do this. I know HR people are very, very passionate about their people. They're very, very protective. And that is why we make this anonymous. This is completely anonymous. If unrolling this and laying this out, it is something we always recommend that you stress, that this is an anonymous two-way communication. If you want your voice to be heard, this is done. I'm not going to call you out on the carpet because I think I know that was your survey that you handed in last week, and I think you said this, and I think you said that, because there can be, like, there's a lot of, people can be scared to be truly honest with surveys, is what we have seen. So this was one of the reasons why it's anonymous, and it's a very easy way. You pick up your phone, you say, this happened, and then we can deal with it. Now, if there's something major that happens, we are not going to take care of that ourselves. That is going to be an immediate pick up the phone, tell you there was something that happened, and then we allow you to take care of that. That is not what we're trying to do. You are the ruler of your domain. We're not trying to step in here. We're just trying to facilitate and move things forward. And we feel like there's a lot of bots out there for human interaction software, and we did not want that. We wanted it to be, if it's human experience, it should be a human interaction, not just a bot throwing out random things that you're like, that really has nothing to do with what I'm trying to figure out here. Okay. And like we said, like, you don't want to do anything that does not take action. We're not trying to make disengagement. People don't want to do surveys because a lot of times they feel like why do it? Because I'm not being heard. Why are we doing that? I hear that quite a bit. I talk to HR people all day long, and they say, if we don't take action on things, there's no reason. And that's not even their fault, because the people above them may not be like, we don't have the time, we don't have the money, we don't have this, we don't have that. And you might find it extremely important to do that. But we always ask for you to do some sort of action within a few weeks of uploading the program, because of the platform, because that will start to bring the participation rates up and the trust in you and in the platform, and the participation rates will just skyrocket out through there. So the higher participation rates are with more action. It shows that the organization cares about their employees enough to take action on what they are concerned about or want to improve. And it allows you to be proactive. You're seeing these things real time right now. You're not waiting for 3 months after you hire somebody to ask them how their onboarding's going. You can just send them a message and be like, how you doing? What could we have done better? And if it's anonymous and you have a big enough of a sample, then they're going to feel like they can go ahead and go in there and just send that back. You know what? I don't think that they did a good job of training me. My trainer was this happened, or I loved it. You can find what personalities work better with what managers. It's very, very insightful as to know, to be very proactive instead of reactive, like looking through the rear view mirror trying to drive a car. That's what we try to help you not do that. And while through all of this, you are getting progress. You're being shown where you're improving and where more attention needs to be focused. We actually had a case study that I can share with you guys. It's called a Big Leap. It's a digital marketing company. And going through COVID, they had to let a lot of people go. They started a little before the pandemic with us. And while going through COVID, they had to let go 20, 30% of their workforce. But while they were doing it, they were communicating with their people and they felt trusted. They felt like they're included in what was going on. My company was going out, that was very, very quiet. Nobody said anything and no information was like killing me. It made everybody very, very stressed. So they were able to communicate with their employees and get feedback from them to see how they were actually going through the process from their employee standpoint. And their employee net promoter score went up 31% during all these layoffs. So when you're engaging with your employees, they're appreciating that, and your needle's going up, and you're seeing these, what you're doing is doing well for this. So that's going on in all the different campaigns. It gives you scores with like our scale-based scores is where these numbers are coming from. And if there's any questions at all, please pop in. I'm trying not to go too fast, and I'm trying to cover some things. But if there's any questions or concerns or anything like that, please just chime in, please. So again, we're with you with every step of the way with this. We don't believe of just dumping a ton of information on your lap and saying good luck. So we are here to try to help you as much as you are comfortable with decipher what's going on with this information. And we're the experts in the data. But we don't offer strategy. We have people who help you do that. And this is as much as you want to take. If you don't want to do any of it, you want to take all of the questions, and if you want to get involved with all your employee questions and figuring out, where the good and the bad is and all the different conversations internally, that is up to you to do that. But we can help you with that. If you're like, well, I'm going to get all this information, then what am I supposed to do with it? We actually have some strategists that can help you understand that. And we know you guys love great data because it helps you guys move and take action. So we're going to try to help you do that. So we have a dedicated support team. We have an internal support team like Jess and multiple people are dealing with these questions, trying to get more like a deeper dive to understand why they feel the way they feel about the areas that you want to know about. The daily engagements, those conversations, again, that's us or you. Identify those critical conversations and send that information to you so you can make your action plan on that. But if you want help, we do have experts in those fields. We have human experience experts. We have diversity experts. We have general HR experts. So we have people at our fingertips that are included in the program that will help you take action, understand the data, decipher the data, dig through it, and to make you more comfortable using this. Again, whatever extent you need it, again, we're very, very customizable. Whatever you feel like you need from us, we're here to help you with that. So about getting it wrong, this is a little more negative slide than I like, but it's basically what if you get it wrong in the human experience, what happens? We have disengagement, retention problems. People don't want to work there. They're looking to leave. There's risks. If they don't feel comfortable coming to anybody, if they feel like this is not a safe space, and I'm not saying that's how it is for you people. Your companies, I'm sure you're all great because you take a lot of time to be a better HR director by coming to these events. But one of the reasons why we have the slide up here is because we have one of our largest clients has 30 some hotels all over the central part of the country. And they unrolled the platform, and within a few days, there was evidence that one specific hotel was having a lot of sexual harassment issues. For whatever reason, the women did not feel like they were didn't feel comfortable enough to actually go and report the problem. So with Illumo, they can just text right back to the text and say, there's a problem with this, I have a problem with that, whatever it is that if the question isn't asked, doesn't mean that you're not going to see it. They can text right back to it. It shows up on the back end of the website, and you can deal with it. So once that popped up on Illumo's radar, they called them immediately and said, there's a problem. There's 3 or 4 different cases of this happening. They did that company's HR company, they did their investigation, and it was found out that he was actually sexually harassing women. It saved them possibly millions, and it also made those women feel heard and respected and valued. And that's the anonymity of this platform can go very, very far. Even if you feel like they trust you, there's some things they may not feel trusted to do, just their own personality. Some people are very, very closed, and this gives them an opportunity to do that. So getting it right. One, the human experience, a company that has a high human experience level is a great place to work for. You have lower turnover. You have higher, this is, you guys are probably more concerned about the turnover and the human experience and the people aspect of it, but there's also the business results, which are important. The turnover is lower, the profitability is higher, there's an increase in productivity, and your ENPS scores are to go through the roof because you feel like you're valued. Again, so we're looking for business results by engaging employees with better culture, but again, it all starts with the insights and feedback. And we feel like we can help you understand your people at a level that most likely have never been seen before. And we know you care about your people. And that's part of the reason why I took this position, is because I care about helping people. I wanted to do something that I felt was worthwhile. And that's basically what we try to do. This is why Illumo was created, is to help employees have a better work-life experience and for the company to better understand their employees. But for anybody who is in this, who attended the webinar today, we do have a special offering. It is the LEAP report, basically is the whole entire platform for 2 weeks, whatever the right amount of time is that works for you. We want you to understand your people as best as possible. So we're going to give it to you completely for free because we are that passionate about improving the world out there and to make everybody, feel better about their, work-life experience. So if anybody, that's the LEAP report is a 10 to 14 page report about the entire experience, and it helps you understand where things are. And that report is normally a considerable amount, but we're going to give that away to anybody that is here today as well. So those 2 offerings are for anyone that's here, and I can send information out because I have the case study, and I can send a little bit more information about the LEAP report so you can see if that's something that you're interested in. And it's super quick and easy. I forgot to say this. This is an add-on. This is not something that you have to tear any of your platforms down. This is a several day tops addition. We just need a CSV file, and we take care of adding you in, and you tell us what campaigns you want. We turn off the ones you don't want, and we turn on the ones that you do want to know about. And then that's where you're going to get your information from, and we can have you up and going within a few days. It's really pretty fast. So is there any questions from anyone? Okay, and I believe everyone's LinkedIn information is on the invite. Am I right on that?
I would look to Emma to answer.
Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, we'll share the slides with everyone after
Okay.
this webinar. If you want to provide your LinkedIn in the chat, your info, Corey, so people can connect with you, go
Okay.
ahead and put it here. Yeah, that's a great way to share it. It does look like there is a question from Raheem in
Okay.
the chat. As a result of COVID-19, where do you see your company post the pandemic with respect to any flexibility with employees? For example, are employees operating remotely? And
Yes. So
go ahead.
this is part of the reason why Lumo has kind of taken off, is because it's difficult for human resource managers to take the pulse of their company when there's people all over the place. So this is used to put them in, like, whatever department you want to put them into, you can see, what's going on. So we feel like this is a pretty big deal, trying to get, understanding of people of multiple locations, remote working. Do you send out a poll survey and say, do you want to come back? So we try to support you in all sorts of different ways. We can poll, you can send out announcements, you can only ask certain people certain questions. So if you have a location in Michigan that has a different needs and somewhere in Delaware, then it's very flexible to use that to understand what's going on with your company and your employees.
Okay. Corey, thank you very much for your presentation today. You're making your email address available to everybody in the chat.
Yep.
Is that what you were doing?
Yep, I was getting my LinkedIn page and my email, which all my information is on that. That is about ready
Perfect.
to post it.